Hello and welcome to another episode of the God is a Geek Retrocast. I'm your host Lee Garbett, and joining me once again is my co-host Robin Parker.
Hello there.
And we have got a treat of an episode for you this time around. This is, I could say, probably one of my top 10 games of all time, and it will be pretty high up there. And this is, of course, Gunstar Heroes by Treasure on the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games which always appears towards the top of people's top 10, top 100 games lists whenever one of those rolls around, the sort of end of year lists. This one is always there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like a cult classic at this point. I mean, much like developer Treasure's other games, it's very beloved by those that have played it. But I don't think it's as famous as a lot of other games out there that would maybe be seen as in the same league as this game.
No, you're probably right. It's one of those titles that is almost critically acclaimed, and if you're in the biz, you have to have played it, or people will think you have to have played it. But a lot of people, just general gamers, may not even know what it's all about.
Of course. So just to give you the stats, this game came out in 1993. Developers Treasure, they were originally a group of guys who used to work at Konami, so they worked on games like the Contra series, and you can obviously see that you'll see in a second there that it's definitely a game based on the kind of Contra template. Also came onto the Game Gear in 1995, which is quite late for that particular system, and obviously doesn't hold up as well as this Mega Drive version. But it's a very interesting game. I mean, this is Treasure's first game as a studio, first big game as a studio, and it's a massive debut on the system.
No, it's as you quite rightly said, there's a definite Konami influence there through the team, and but the other thing that it also has that Konami games did, it's a quality title. I mean, it's a side-scrolling shooter action game. It's what everyone thinks. The type of title everyone thinks of when they think of a Konami title. I mean, you'd be forgiven for thinking this was a Konami just to look at it in action, but it's an altogether different beast entirely. Anyway, Treasure have it helped them carve out their own name in the business. This game,
of course. So as you can see, it actually gives us the choice of selecting our starting weapon, along with if we want to make your character stand still when firing or do free running, and then you can also choose your level as well, which is, it's quite a different thing for a running gun shooter to do.
Yeah, it's always, as we've seen, you used to be able to do that on some NES game, but it's still something which was relatively rare at the time, where you could tackle levels as you wished. It still wasn't a commonplace thing.
No. So I've picked the homing gun, and there's a reason for that, which I'll explain in a second. You can actually have multiple weapons at once, and you can actually combine the different weapons that you get to make a better weapon. And you'll see soon that the weapon that I'm going to create is a devastating beast. So it's all kind of standard running and gunning here, but it gets very, very crazy very, very quickly, such as this boss, Papaya Dance, who kind of wobbles around a bit.
Yeah, that's the one thing where this game really differs. You've got that Japanese strange sense of design and style, which perhaps isn't quite as obvious in Konami titles. It's not as westernized maybe as Konami games were.
No, it is very, very, very odd. It's quite a lot more forgiving than the Contra series. You've actually got a life bar of sorts, so it's no one-hit kills here. It's you've got energy and you can't collect more. So I kind of, in a way, that's kind of why I prefer it to the Contra games, just because it is a bit more forgiving in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, Contra, as good as the Contra games are, they can be horribly cheap at times, and you could be playing brilliantly, and something unexpected will get you, it will kill you, and you'll lose hours of progress. But where something like Gunstar Heroes with its health bar it offers a different experience, and probably a bit less tense, a bit more fun.
I mean, something else I liked about this game, you may see me throw a guy off of the stairs. You can actually use melee attacks. You can do drop kicks, you can throw, you can punch. So really, yeah, you are given a lot of opportunities for offensive manoeuvres in this game, and I think that's what makes it even more fun. Is that no matter what the situation, you just have so much power, even though it can get to be quite a hard game at times. But you do have a lot of tools to do damage.
Yeah, it's not just your typical. Oh, you pick up a flamethrower, pick up different alterations for your gun. There is, as you say, there's a lot of different ways to attack in this game, and that is a big part of the fun. And the multi-directional attacking and firing, and even as we saw earlier when you're going up the stairs, the multi-planes on the stairs. It's even the way you move around on the level is a lot of fun because you can move in and out of different environments, and it's just a type of control which you didn't see very often in games in 16-bit era.
Yeah, and the other thing about this game is that it really did push the Mega Drive as a console. I mean, Treasure were doing things with this hardware that we thought was only possible on the SNES back in the day. We're talking scaling, rudimentary polygons, really impressive graphics, all on the the Mega Drive, which although had a slightly faster processor than the SNES did, it wasn't anywhere near as powerful.
No, when the Papaya Dance boss was on earlier, for instance, you'd be forgiven for thinking, oh, that's a bit of Mode 7 graphics there, just because it was the sort of graphics you never saw on the Mega Drive, really.
And of course, as later Treasure games would prove, they do love a good boss fight, and this game has a lot of boss fights. So just fighting the final boss fight on this level. As you can see, I'm using that homing laser to good effect here. As you can see, it literally just stays on a target and just causes damage just by holding the button, leaving you free to move around and avoid all the attacks.
The funny thing is, for such a big robot, one of his main attacks is just a little man with a pistol coming out of one of the arms. It's very Japanese, those two bad guys with the sunglasses on.
It really is. I'm playing this on easy just to make it easy to show you as much of the game as possible, but not too much because there is a lot to be seen in this game. I mean, on easy you could look to be finishing this game in less than an hour, a bit longer if you're playing on a hard difficulty.
Yeah, but then obviously that's the challenge. Yeah, but you take it. It will last you as long as you want it to. I suppose gamers they'll learn the levels they want to play it on the tougher difficulties, and you'll want to play it again because of the brilliant visuals, the control style. I mean, it almost seems like you're in an anime at times just because of the expression on the characters' faces and such.
Yeah, everything's drawn really nicely. It's got a very nice aesthetic to everything. All the environments are completely unique. I mean, as you'll see, this is one of the most unique levels I've ever seen in a game ever. But more on that in a second. But it's just so so refreshing. Even today, I mean, I think we were talking before recording the podcast, and I said that as well as being one of my top 10 games ever, it's a game I come back to every year. Either I buy it on a new console or I just replay existing versions of it. It's just a game that is as good today as it ever was, and I think that's a good thing about retro games.
I think it says a lot about the lasting appeal of the game that it's been released and re-released on different consoles and different online networks, and for instance, and that it just shows the lasting appeal of the game and how much people still want to play it.
Of course. As you've seen, we're actually playing a board game now, so you actually have to throw the dice, and wherever it lands is takes you to a particular level or a challenge, or in this case, a power-up room.
It's almost something out of like Mario 3 or that sort of idea of little mini games, but they've taken it even further.
Yeah, and of course this game is actually two-player co-op as well, and with two players it's incredibly fun as you can throw each other around, and it's just absolutely insane. We're just fighting another little random boss fight. We've got a certain amount of time to kill this enemy, but he can actually stop time and reverse it as well, which also reverses the timer.
Just another one of the touches which makes the game so unique, because it's not just these sort of little things you just didn't see at the time.
Well, I mean, if you were to play this game now, like, it would show you things I don't think you rarely ever see in other games. It genuinely surprises you in the things that the game does and expects you to do. So let's see where we're going to fight now. We're fighting the dangerous melon bread. It's just a face.
Some of these different mini games almost seem as if they were sort of development tests to see what they could do with the graphics.
Yeah, I mean, this game is one great big tech demo, and but it has gameplay to that, to match the technology that is being used, and I think that's why this game is so good, because it isn't just style; it's quite a lot of substance. So many different things you can do. You're never doing the same thing for too long. You're always being tested and challenged, and every level is different and unique. And say here, we're actually going through a short little maze of sorts.
I think that is one thing you can't deny about this game. It's constantly moving. There's constantly something different happening. You couldn't possibly get bored playing this game.
No, you rarely stay still in this game. I think it is all action. There's never a quiet moment. You've always got enemies going after you, or you're doing something against the clock. Or I mean, this is about as quiet as it gets, just throwing this dice around. So here's another boss for you, the Phantom. Pretty simple boss. It's like one of the previous red enemies we saw earlier, just a bit tougher. But of course not too tough to withstand my insane homing laser, which almost breaks the game slightly. But if you play it on hard difficulties, it really doesn't. It's just only because we're playing easy, it makes it a bit easier to dispatch enemies with that particular gun.
Yeah, and of course you can't. On harder difficulties, you won't be able to hang on to those weapons for as long as you can on the easy version either.
And you will get mobbed by enemies even while you're using them as well, so it can get a bit hairy. So we're going to fight Curry and Rice, and we can't use our guns, so we actually have to use melee attacks to kill him.
It's such a crazy level.
See, it's just...
People who'd never, if you were joining our video at this point, you'd be a bit confused, wondering what on earth was going on.
I mean, like, depending on how what dice rolls you get, you may never even see this level on the playthrough. It's entirely random.
Yeah, some of the developers who worked on this game may never have seen. Gamers may never have even played their little boss fight they designed.
No, of course.
That's really not something you expect from many 16-bit games.
No, but it's something we would expect from Treasure a lot more. I mean, they loved their boss fights. They created Alien Soldier, which is a game that is just boss fights. So, it was something they would be known for a lot more. I mean, but they've done other kind of games. It wasn't just shoot 'em ups. They did one of the McDonald's licensed platform games as well. Which is, and believe me, there were several McDonald's games, as strange as that sounds, in this day.
There were, yeah.
In this day and age of being healthy. So I'm just going to fight.
Yeah, of course, they wouldn't be allowed nowadays. I don't know.
Of course not. We're just fighting the boss fight, which is kind of a bit sedate when compared to the rest of the bosses in this level. It's almost straightforward in a way. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily dead easy. It's you can catch you off guard.
No, I suppose when you've been fighting as many strange bosses like the Curry and Rice Man, what can really compare to that?
Of course. I do like the way it does actually tell you the name of the boss and what the names of their attacks are as well, which is a nice little touch.
Yeah, it just sort of personalises it all a bit more. But this boss is sort of very similar to the first boss in the sense that it's a mech on those sort of hydraulic legs, but they've just changed the attack style and the sequences, how it moves around. But it's sort of that's sort of the ongoing trend for some of the bosses in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even this boss uses his own dice, and that chooses what where he lands on and what attacks he uses. So, that's almost like the tail telling you what he's going to do, so you can kind of dodge or position yourself accordingly to avoid the attack.
Yeah, of course, that's one of those bosses that if you learn all the different attacks, even on hard, it will become a lot simpler. But of course, the screen gets filled with fire and different different attacks flying in from every angle when you're on hard. So you have more to contend with.
Yeah, I mean, some of the bosses are incredibly impressive. The minecart level, which we may not have time to show you properly, actually has a boss that has 7 different transformations, and you actually have to fight all of them depending on what difficulty you're in, and they can, it's almost like a transformer boss fight in a way. And the things this enemy does, it turns into a giant mech and runs at you. It turns into an eagle and kind of flies around the screen shooting weapons at you. It's absolutely insane.
It's very much, it shows you sort of the basis Treasure built upon with all their sort of shoot 'em ups and the craziness you got in their later titles. You can see that was very much in their DNA in this game.
It is, and Gunstar Heroes is one of those Treasure games, one of those rare Treasure games that actually spawned a sequel. The Game Boy Advance had its own version of Gunstar Heroes called Gunstar Future Heroes, which is really good. Not quite as good as this game. It's kind of missing the imagination of this game, but it's still a very enjoyable portable version. Well worth a look at if you ever get a chance. I don't know how easy or difficult it is to find that game these days. I imagine it's probably quite rare, but worth checking out if you get the opportunity. But of course, this version of the game can be found on several different compilations, and you can get it on the Xbox 360, the PlayStation Network, on iOS. Even the Nintendo Wii has this on here as well, so there's no reason to not pick this game up.
No, you can even get it on the PC now. Download platforms.
Yeah.
It's everywhere, really.
It is, and that's a great thing, because it is a wonderful game that I think really should be pushed more, and more people should play it and find out how imaginative 16-bit games could be. This is more original than many games out these days.
Oh, completely. I mean, as you say, the Game Boy version lacks some of the imagination. I mean, it's just that you don't get this sort of craziness anymore. You don't get as much imagination in game design. It's just something which sadly just isn't as commonplace. No,
it certainly comes from an era where we thought of Japanese games as being memorable because they were so weird and unusual and wacky. And I think even the Japanese aren't quite as good at doing that anymore than they used to be able to. And maybe that's because we expect it more or what. But this is a standout game no matter what way you look at it.
Completely.
Well, so I think while we ride off on our little minecart thingy, I think we're going to say goodbye. So that's it for this week's God is a Geek Retrocast. You can watch all of our past, present and future episodes via the Retrocast playlist on the God is a Geek YouTube channel. You can also check us out on Blip TV under the God is a Geek TV channel there, or on the God is a Geek TV podcast channel on iTunes. But of course you can visit us on our website at godisageek.com, where you can also check out all of our other fine podcasts, videos, news, reviews, previews and features. And if you'd like to be regularly updated about the show and want to chat with us about anything involving retro gaming or the show itself, you can also follow us on Twitter at the Retrocast, and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much for watching this week's episode, and until next time, keep it retro.
See you later.